In a bid to reshape Nigeria's economic landscape and bolster financial stability, President Bola Tinubu has pledged to end what he described as a vicious cycle of excessive borrowing for public expenditure. He made the comment while inaugurating the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. State House correspondent Adesuwa Omoruan reports.
1 month after approving its establishment, President Bola Tinubu inaugurates the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms at the Council Chambers of the Villa. The committee's major objective is to address the pressing issues hindering the nation's fiscal health and the urgent need to steer the nation away from excessive borrowing and towards a sustainable financial future.
The consequences of ongoing failure of our tax regime are real and significant. The inability of government to efficiently raise revenue has led directly to an over-reliance on borrowing to finance public spending. A government that cannot properly fund itself will also lack the flexibility or physical scope to sensibly manage the economy or respond to external shocks.
Of paramount concern is the inefficiency in revenue generation, coupled with excessive administrative costs and compliance burdens on ordinary taxpayers. The committee, comprising experts from both the public and private sectors, has been tasked to deliver practical solutions to address these pressing challenges. Central to the reform is the target to achieve a minimum 18% tax to GDP ratio within the next 3 years.
In carrying out this mandate, the committee will be guided by national interest above all else. We cannot continue to tax poor party when we should be promoting prosperity. We should no longer tax investment or production, but focus on returns, incomes, and consumption. This government will tax the fruit, but not the seeds.
The committee's chairman provides more information while highlighting the extent of Nigeria's tax evasion, estimating losses of around 20 trillion naira.
If we are hoping to move to 18% over the next 3 years, and we don't want to introduce new taxes, in fact, the mandate that this committee has is to get rid of so many taxes that come in the way of prosperity for our people. So Nigerians should look forward to a more harmonized, fewer number of taxes. But then it seems like it's a contradiction. How do you then raise the revenue? Now we know where we're going to get the revenue from. There's a huge tax gap. What that means is, as of today, without introducing any new taxes, if you get everyone that needs to pay their taxes to pay, we will not be where we are. So we think that tax gap is somewhere in the region of 20 trillion naira.
Other committee members, including Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and the World Bank, highlight proper taxation benefits to businesses and the overall economy.
It's not just about tax and revenues, it's really about inclusive growth, but also about fiscal policy in general, which means about the spending side. What the global experience shows is that if you are to persuade, if any government is to persuade its citizens, its businesses, that look, please do your bit and contribute to the national budget by paying your taxes, not evading or avoiding them, but by contributing to them, you have to have the trust of the people that those funds will be used properly. Most of the financing that we provide is directly for services like primary health care, electricity access, rural roads. Those are things that we look forward to a day where Nigeria is fully financing those from its own government resources. And so I would love to see a day where the work of this committee lays the foundation for making our financing redundant. We are always here to help in other ways.
Our businesses have no business refraining from paying tax. The only issues that we've had has been always ensuring that a fair tax is paid and that the income by government is used to improve the business environment and the well-being of the people.
Economic analysts say Nigeria's over-reliance on borrowing to fund public spending has stifled the government's ability to proactively manage the economy and respond to external shocks. Adesuwa Omoruan, Araj News.
Moving on to more pressing matters. Leaders of the West African Regional Bloc, Ecowas, this past week approved a resolution to activate a standby military force in readiness for possible deployment to Niger Republic. This followed the toppling of the government of President Mohamed Bazoum. ECOWAS leaders have also warned countries within the bloc who are publicly supporting the coup leaders to refrain from doing so. The resolutions were reached at the second extraordinary summit in Abuja. It was reported that the leaders re-emphasized their preferred choice of exploring a diplomatic solution to the crisis. Meanwhile, beyond the shores of Nigeria, the World Bank has suspended all forms of new lending to the Ugandan government after concluding that its anti-LGBTQ law, which has been condemned by many countries and the United Nations, contradicts the bank's values. In a quick response, Uganda's State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Okello Oyen, accused the bank of hypocrisy, saying the bank extends loan facilities to countries in the Middle East and Asia, which maintain harsher laws on homosexuality. A World Bank team had traveled to Uganda immediately after the law was enacted in May and determined that additional measures were needed to ensure that projects were being implemented in line with the bank's environmental and social standards. World Bank President Ajay Banga, who took office in June after the Ugandan law was enacted, has come under pressure to respond to the Ugandan law. On June 15, 170 civic groups called on Banga to take specific, concrete, and timely actions in response to the Uganda anti-LGBTQ law, including suspending future lending. For an overview of these stories and more, I'm now being joined by public affairs analyst Dan Kunle. Mr. Kunle, thank you for joining us on This Day Live.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ruben. It's quite a while, almost 3 months now. We have not been engaging on your popular anchoring program.
Well, it's good to have you back here with me today.
Thank you very much. All the issues you have just articulated are very internationally dimensioned. They are not just localized to those countries, Niger, Uganda, and Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea-Conakry, and Burkina Faso. Maybe I should firstly just attend to the issue in Uganda. Uganda has a history, the same thing with the other African countries. Uganda has a history that you know very well in contemporary times. So it has not been an easy place from Idi Amin and his crisis with the Indians, and then the Entebbe raid, you know yourself. So now the new phase Uganda is into today is Uganda is endowed with resources, no doubt about that. Uganda has huge uranium deposits, they have huge gas deposits, so they have oil. And then they have the lakes, a beautiful country. So I'm not surprised if they get this type of pressure from the World Bank, because the World Bank is also, by the setting, it appears the World Bank have a country with a golden share that always sort of put pressure, indirect pressure on World Bank, where to go, where not to go, what to do, what not to do. So until countries like Uganda and Nigeria or African countries can build capacity like the Asians, internal capacity within their countries to determine what they want post-colonial era and say, this is what I want for my country. This is how I want to pursue my agenda in my country. So that when this foreign pressure comes, you are able to ward it off. That's what the Indians did. That's what the Chinese did. Okay, the case of India is a little bit different from the Chinese. So I think Uganda need to build an internal capacity to manage their affair on their own so that this pressure from World Bank will not in any way sway them to do what they don't want to do. After all, they are a sovereign country. And if you look at natural law, it's very difficult to convince normal human being that you have freedom to be a homosexual or to be a lesbian or to be anything you want to be. It's very difficult because those of us that are just natural, we always look at such issues as something must be abnormal somewhere. So I think it's good for America and World Bank to give countries their right, which is even what they propagate across the world. They are the Western democratic advanced nations. Democracy is the watchword. So why will you want to gag or force a country to go your way? And if they don't go your way, you don't want to give aids to them. So countries must get ready in the new phase of human evolution. Countries have to get ready to carry their own cross. You must get ready to carry your own cross. So that when this external pressure comes, I agree that globalization and democratization of what is good should be universal. I agree. But where something is not too comfortable for me in my country, and I say, no, I don't expect people to put too much pressure on me and start putting sanctions on me. So it is time we look inward. So Uganda should look inward to manage their affair if that is what they don't want. So that is my own opinion in that respect. I don't want to go to other issues that are confronting Uganda because I'm aware Tota was asked not to. Yeah, but to go to Niger.
Before you go to Niger, Mr. Kunle, still on World Bank. I mean, the World Bank was set up post-World War to provide development assistance for low and middle-income countries, alleviate poverty, support development in some of these underprivileged countries. But in recent times, we've seen ideology being a major issue for the World Bank. David Malpass, one of the controversies he had to deal with was that, look, he wasn't paying enough attention to climate change issues. And that was one of the reasons why, he had to be edged out. So is the World Bank now a political bloc, a political body, considering the fact that it has 189 member countries? And you were referring to some other countries, maybe the United States, China, those countries that determine how the World Bank works. Is the World Bank still relevant to us in terms of its original objectives? If it gets into politics like, LGBTQ issues, and Uganda saying, we have our own cultural values, we have our own sovereignty, and we can determine how we engage with the rest of the world. After all, they will start exploring for oil in Uganda, according to the president.
Yeah, you see, environmental governance issue, sustainable development. I'm a keen student of climate. You see, the World Bank and the developed world and the major members that has so much financial resources committed to the World Bank, they always have this first right, or what you can call like a veto power or veto status, because their money is there, so their interest is there. And since World Bank was set up in the mid-40s, 1950s, Brentwood institutions post-Second World War era to see how they were going to marshal resources to countries of weaker points in the world, like what they did for Japan, what they did for Germany, and what they did for even South Korea in recent times, in the last 30 years for South Korea. You see, they try to intervene in all these countries with very low interest loan for reconstruction and development. But it always goes with certain political conditions, which normally the World Bank is supposed not to get involved in the local politics of some of these countries by the standard and by their rule. But because of the influence, the overbearing influence of the United States of America, who is trying to use World Bank as an instrument also to police democratic norms, because they want democratic norms and ethics to be abided with in countries. So they use World Bank as like check and balances. If you don't comply properly in your country with certain democratic norms, they say, no, don't give money. So they have this waiver and discretionary power at their disposal. So this is affecting many countries that have weak governance environment. The issue of climate and the issue of compliances with exogenous issues that are beyond some of these third world nations is that you don't emit carbon, for example. I don't emit much carbon in Nigeria. I don't burn coal. I don't emit carbon. But the developed countries set the rules and the standard for carbon reduction and now send the rules to me and say I must comply. Meanwhile, they are the ones who have built so much carbon in their environment. They have already emitted so much carbon. They have distorted the entire atmospheric temperature and atmospheric weather long time ago. And now they want to reduce carbon, and they want the rule to cut across the whole world. And some of these small countries like Uganda that has resources and want to develop the resources to develop their people, you now put the barrier. So it's a conflict that we have to manage carefully. And the capacity for us as nations to manage some of these things, because they are very dynamic issues, and isolate some issues at the appropriate time and say, this very item is no go area for me, is my minimum. You can't cross it. Otherwise, I prefer not to be member of your country. Let me go to be member of World Bank. Let me go and relate with China or Russia that will give me a free hand to manage my resources as I like. So I think the conflict is going to intensify as time goes. And it may not, Dr. Ruben, you are a philosopher, it may not be an issue we can deal with in one day, in 1 month, in 1 year. I think nations are going to realign. You and me, we are in the generation that have seen the First World War, Second World War effect. And we are again now seeing the crescendo of the Western democratic empire. Okay. We are heading there now. We are heading there. I think there is going to be a crisis. And this crisis, every nation has to prepare to manage it. Yeah.
Mr. Kunle, you were going to respond to another subject in my introduction. We might as well go there. But I still have to come back to Nigeria, which is, our immediate constituency. You were about to talk about Niger. And the fact that Ecowas has held 2 extraordinary summits within 10 days, and now Ecowas has imposed sanctions, Ecowas has renewed the sanctions. But I think, my personal opinion, that Ecowas is being contradictory in this matter by talking with both sides of the mouth. It's Ecowas shadow boxing. Is Ecowas really serious about trying to make a difference in Niger?
Well, Dr. Ruben Abati, you and me were contemporary students of the history of Ecowas from 1975 to date, and I have been very keen in studying the circumstances that has been interfering in the integration of economic community of West Africa. You see, the French have maybe taken for granted. You can see, if you dimension the French and the Algeria situation, is bad. So the French and the ECOWAS Francophone countries, over the years, what has happened? The confidence has been eroded. The West African French speaking, they have begun to lose confidence rapidly in their former colonial masters, who had a theory and principle of assimilation, which is different from the British, from the Anglophone. Now, the Niger Republic is more or less an extension of Nigeria. When you travel to Maradi, you travel to Niamey, you go all along to Bamako, we see we are the same people. They speak Hausa. BBC Hausa Radio covered the whole territory. So I feel that the Nigerian people are under pressure. And this pressure is multidimensional. America is in Niger, but I will go to one history. When Chevron and maybe ExxonMobil did oil exploration in Niger, they left. They left years ago. The Chinese came back to Niger and they find oil in large volume. Today they are building crude pipeline to Benin Republic. So Niger has huge uranium deposit and the French has been taking it. Now the Russians have license to take uranium from Niger also. Now the Russians also have oil block in Niger that is bordering Algeria. So there's now interest of the Russia, interest of the French, and interest of America. So Nigeria within ECOWAS, we are supposed to be the most powerful. That was the interest of General Gowon when he said, look, West Africa must be integrated because Nigeria have resources and the muscle and the capacity to integrate the remaining small country in West Africa, even though they largely speak French. But our good work will have been able to integrate them. So the situation in which President Bola Tinubu finds himself now, I feel very much for him, but I'm out to support him to succeed, is whether going to war in Niger to ask to expel those military leaders that have taken over the regime, or whether to embark on diplomatic shuttle. Diplomatic shuttle is the answer, is the solution. War is not the solution. Yes, war is on the table, but it should never be. It will never happen. Because the complex situation in Niger today is that the people of Niger are not going to support us if we go there. They will not support us. And meanwhile, the border of Niger and Nigeria is almost free market border, apart from the orange telephone that you will notice when you cross, that you are no longer operating within the Nigeria telecommunication environment. That's the only thing that will make you know that you are now in Niger. And then maybe their phonetics is a little bit different. So ECOWAS is in a very, ECOWAS community and the military command order, they are in a tight situation, but it's better for them to diplomatically slow down. They must slow down, allow the former Emir of Kano, Emir Sanusi, to engage these guys constructively, and we may get a result. I'm aware now the president, the former president of Niger that is in detention, the son is very sick. I'm aware the man himself needs attention because you know what it means for 2 weeks to be in isolation is psychologically very, very bad. So I think our president, we must encourage President Tinubu not to go to war, but to go into diplomatic Georgia.
Okay,
that is
Mr.
the solution
Kunle.
to Niger issue. Niger resources is at stake. Niger's resources is at stake, and we have to be careful.
Mr. Kunle,
very careful.
Mr.
Because
Kunle,
the French have lost the grip in that territory of the world. The West African French-speaking territory, the French have lost the grip.
well, Mr. Kunle, I get your point about the close affinity between the people of Nigeria and the people of Nigeria. After all, the wife of this General Chiani, who is leading the rebellion, the coup, his wife is from Kangiwa in Kebbi State in Nigeria. So there is that marital connection. The Emir of Dosso in Niger reports or pays homage to the Emir of Agungu here in Nigeria. So there's that connection, truly. But everyone else has told President Tinubu, don't join ECOWAS. Don't come and say it's ECOWAS resolution because of the closeness between these two countries. But President Tinubu is saying, well, it's ECOWAS resolution and we must be part of it. Where is the money going to come from? The chief of air staff says we have bought 72 new aircraft and that the Air Force is ready. They want to go and waste our aircraft. So, but you seem to be alone, standing with Tinubu, because Afenifere is not with him, Khan is not with him, the Council of Ulamas are not with him, a lot of other people are not with him. They're saying, don't put Nigeria's soldiers into that war because we have no dog there. So why are you standing by him? Why is he not listening?
Yes, but we should still continue to discourage him from going to war. We should continue to encourage him to go into diplomatic Georgia. So I cannot, I don't see why I expect Afenifere to say, look, you are our son and you are the president of Nigeria today. So don't go to war. The Afenifere is to articulate all the diplomatic steps for President Tinubu to take. That is all they should do. That's our responsibility. They should engage Benin Republic, engage all the elders. In fact, they should make President Obasanjo to stand up and go. I expect President Tinubu to call President Obasanjo and say, Mr. President, you were formerly in this same seat where I am today. You and General Buhari should be able to go with Emir Sanusi to Niger Republic and solve this problem for me. I cannot go to war with my neighbor because my neighbor are part of me. We are the same family. So my brother Ruben, let me be very honest with you. President Tinubu should reach out to President Buhari. He should reach out to former President Obasanjo and resolve this problem. We have the capacity. Nigeria have not lost completely. We still have quality human beings in this country. And and I believe even Professor Wole Soyinka is sitting somewhere in the world today. He should be reached out to. President Tinubu should knock at all these doors. General Gowon is still alive. General Gowon is alive. So he should not go to war. But I will support President Tinubu to succeed, but not to go to war. To succeed in diplomatic shuttle. Because I know, even the gas pipeline that is to run from Nigeria to Niger to Algeria, that project has been put on hold due to so many misunderstandings between us and Niger. So I think we should resolve all these issues. Niger is 26 million people. We can even absorb them if we build capacity. 26 million plus 220 million. We're still, so please, I am not contradicting the position of anybody. I'm just straight. I'm straight and I'm not ambiguous.
Mr. Kunle, just to set the record straight, you are recommending that President Obasanjo and President Buhari should be sent to Niger. President Buhari, after all, said if you disturb him in Nigeria, he will go to Niger. But he can't go there now. He has to stay here with us. But you recall that President Tinubu sent General Abdul Salami Abubakar and the Sultan of Sokoto, and on his own, Emir Sanusi Lamido Sanusi went there as the head of the Tijaniya sect. But, they paid attention to Emir Sanusi, but they snubbed General Abdul Salami Abubakar. They snubbed the Sultan of Sokoto, who is the head of the Muslim Ummah in the whole of Nigeria, with influence reaching across West Africa. So, but I don't know what other magic you think he can perform. But let's talk about President Tinubu.
Dr. Ruben, does that stop you because they did not attend to His Eminent and the former president, former military president of Nigeria, Absalam Abubakar? Does that now stop us from still sending people? No, that does not mean now because of that we now go to war. That would be a very wrong, hasty decision to take. You see, we should not be emotional or sentimental about this thing or wear this arrogant toga of, oh, I am the big boy of West Africa. No! Big boy over what? You are doing 1 million barrels of crude oil per day to look after 220 million people. We are broke. So why will you go to war? So send, if they did not attend to General Absalam and His Eminent, then send former President Obasanjo and President Buhari, send them with Emir Sanusi. They will open the door. They will say Nigeria is very serious. The door will be open. If you send them 3 times and they don't open the door, the 4th time they will open the door. And you negotiate to rescue this man out of that place. We should not lose that gentleman, the former president, Mr. President Buzz.
Okay, Mr. Kunle.
Over what?
Okay, Mr. Kunle.
Yeah, so please.
Let's come.
That does not mean we should declare war because, yeah.
Okay, let's come back to Nigeria. President Tinubu has been there now for about 75 days. He's been trying to do a number of reforms. Harmonization of the foreign exchange regime, which has taken the naira to 1,000 naira to the dollar. And also the tax and fiscal policy committee of 38 persons that he has set up to ensure harmonization, efficiency, and also, ensure accountability. And then, of course, the removal of fuel subsidy, which has thrown everybody adrift. What do you think of the reform process of this government after 75 days? We're looking at 100 days. And where do you think Tinubu seems to have misplaced the cards or misread the tarot cards?
Doctor, yeah, thank you. Dr. Ruben, you are going to put me in the Look, I am a reformer. 1993, people who live around Kaduna GRA, 1993, we remember my institute. I opened an institute called Economic Reengineering Institute in Kaduna. I am a reformist by nature, by tendencies, because I didn't go to Harvard. I learned on the street in Nigeria. I've been a organizer in big factory, joining conveyor belts to move product from one end to another in big factories in Nigeria. I have trained as a tire organizer in Germany, in Munich. So I went to school, but I have been out there in the Universal University to learn more about mining, about engineering, about taxation. I hosted National Taxation Reform Seminar in 2002 at Sheraton Hotel in Abuja. And most attendants of that seminar were from Lagos Internal Revenue Board. They came in droves. So now, all this reform that Babangida started in 1989, which was mirrored after the Thatcher reform in England, all these reforms were very fundamentally required for a country, for a nation that were just emerging from the command era of the old order. So when you want to transform an economy from command era to a flat, deregulated, and yet regulated economy, open market economy, you need deep reforms. The tax system of this country was long overdue for reform. They were archaic because they were still based on the colonial economic system that we were running up to 1960. There have not been major reform. In fact, when VAT was introduced, some of us were saying, oh, for the first time, consumption VAT is introduced. So let us build on it, because it was the easiest way to capture tax, consumption tax. So you are taxing consumption, you are not taxing production. So now, this deep reform, as it appears to be like that, is a very ambitious one. And some of the members of this reform, I think I have been trying to engage some of them. They have not been able to open up to some of us properly because maybe of our antecedent. We were pro-Obasanjo, and I have no regret over that because I worked for 8 years in Obasanjo regime, and I did some work also on gas master plan with Yaradua. So no regret, because the reform is necessary. And whoever is the president of this country, some of us that are still alive and still relatively healthy, we are ready to join the team to carry out the reform. It's a deep reform that is required. The Nigerian citizen must get ready for it. We must all pay tax, appropriate tax, not excessive tax. And then we must allow we must allow the reform to take its course rapidly. It's not something you can do in a day, but it must be steadily pursued. So it's like this, Dr. Abati. This is one issue that you need all the stakeholders. Ministry of Finance is very germane to this. Ministry that looks after MPA, NIMASA, CAC, all the institutions that capture revenue for federal government, customs, you must be able to have a buy-in of all the stakeholders. There must be no government within government that starts resisting this reform. This is where experience and knowledge of some of us will come in. We don't need to be financial expert. I don't need to be a chartered accountant before I know, since my arithmetic was strong enough. So we must get all these people to buy in so that the technology we are going to deploy, the robust technology and platform we are going to deploy to connect with all these revenue agencies so that government can have a dashboard center where you see all the income coming in on daily basis and is going to the consolidated federation account from where you can now share the money. It is very important. Even NEC, National Economic Council, must be carried along. They are major stakeholders. They need workshops and seminars to educate them. Because some of these governors, they are just on jamboree trip. They just come to Abuja, attend National Economic Council, they go back, they share money every month. Okay. That era has to stop.
Mr. Kunle.
That era has to stop. They have to now key into the tax revenue system that the country is trying to build now. So these are very serious areas, Dr. Abati, that we may not have enough time to dissect all the issues and calibrate them and situate them as they're supposed to be.
Two things, Mr. Kunle, as I begin to wrap up this conversation. President Tinubu says his ambition is to raise tax to GDP ratio from 8% to 18% tax to GDP ratio, all within 1 year. The Taiwo Yedele Committee has 30 days, maximum 1 year, by which all the recommended reforms will have been implemented. Are these objectives achievable? And more importantly, they want efficient tax collection. Who is going to collect that tax when we have governors who are living large and are just appointing their children, their girlfriends, their concubines into positions and are just expanding the cost of government? How are we going to achieve that objective?
Well, Dr. Abati, Dr. Ruben, let me tell you, the target set by Mr. President is achievable. The target set by the tax reform chairman is also achievable, but I'm with a caveat. We are naturally lazy people in this country. I want to see a strong economic management team that we run on shift hour basis. The situation in which Nigeria is now, we need a rescue team. We need to work 24 hours. President Tinubu have set target. Where are the foot soldiers to achieve it? So this committee, will they work 24 hours? Yes, I expect them. I expect them to have a war room where some of us will go, brainstorm for 3-4 hours in a day, and the boys on the keyboard, the rapporteurs, will be working with a dashboard. And we must build this nerve across the country. So it's doable, but you must have hard-working guys who will roll off their sleeve and know that this is a rescue mission we are into. Not just to set the target, and you now ask the team to go and do the work, and the team cannot do the work. They can do the work, but the spirit and the passion, the agility is not there. So you need to assemble people that will get this job done. I have not seen where a team will go to close. They should not close. Saturday and Sunday should be work day. They should establish war room where brainstorming will be taking place to marshal out all these things. So it's doable. It's doable. It's doable if we are serious. If we really want to rescue this country.
Okay, Mr. Kunle. Mr. Kunle, we have to begin to wrap up now. But I want to ask you, in recent times, we have witnessed the screening of ministerial nominees. 48 presented by President Tinubu, 45 approved. Now, if you look at that team, you've been talking about foot soldiers. Do you think that this cabinet list would present Nigerians with these strong foot soldiers who can make a difference? 9 of them are former governors, people who have been here and there, tired and retired. They still want to come and be ministers. Some of the other people, they are great unknowns. So some people are saying this cabinet list is not inspiring. On top of it all, nobody knows what portfolio they will be offered. What would you like to advise
Dr.
at
Abati,
this point?
Dr. Ruben Abati, if I'm to take you through the reform, the public institutional reform of Nigeria, that all the archaic name we inherited from the colonial masters, I don't want to comment yet on the the members of the cabinet that is yet to be constituted. But let me just start from the issue of the ministries. Take a typical Minister of Works. What is the meaning of Minister of Works? What meaning does it make to you and me in grammar? What meaning does Minister of Transport mean to you and me? So Minister of Work, if President Tinubu wants to succeed, he should allow some of us to articulate for him, some of us around the country that have some relatively good knowledge of what to be. Minister of Works by now is already old enough. Just call Ministry for Highway Development. That is the ministry, functional ministry to look after roads. You can even have two ministers there, one in charge of maintenance and repair, one in charge of new highways, to build new highways across the country. So you can have Ministry of Maritime Development. That is to look after ports, anything maritime, inland waterways, river roads. That is like that. You can have Minister for Railway Development. So you can have functional ministries like this. Why will you Ministry for Environment and Climate Change? Today, who is in charge? Even the waste disposal in our major cities. Who is in charge? All these ministries must be redelineated, and their nomenclature must change. We must update them and digitize some of their activities and stop this big bogus name, Minister of Transport, Minister of Works. I am the minister in charge of highway development. My job is just to develop new highways across the country. I'm the minister for water resources, to build dams and give potable water to Nigerians. So we have to be more functional. On the issue of the content and the quality of the cabinet, let me say this. We must work on the 20-80 ratio theory. 20% of the ministerial list can be high-quality end people. High quality. If they will be allowed to do the job. So the remaining 80% can be ceremonial ministers, as I always say. During Obasanjo, we had ceremonial ministers. But we had core team ministers that were in charge of the economic management. So that is what I expect this man to do. And the members of the economic management team for President Tinubu should not necessarily be ministers. They should come from outside the cabinet. They will know that every week I have to be in Abuja to contribute to the economic management activity of the government. And they should work closely with the NEC. So all these governors that you mentioned that are just jamboreeing all over the place is because they still get cheap money. They still get cheap money from federation account. If you really restructure the tax system and you now say that VAT cannot go to the whole country, you collect your VAT in your state. Any VAT we collect in your state is digitized. We know the amount we collected in your state. It's your money in that state. So there will be no more jamboree because you now know internally your VAT is so small. So where is the money to share from Abuja anymore? No more.
Well,
and this is law.
Mr.
And
Kunle,
this is natural law. This is natural law. So to go back to the issue of, so I believe that President Tinubu, out of this number of ministers he has today, there are still 20% that are very qualitative. I know some of them. They are very good. I know some of them. I don't want to expose them now so that people will not put eyes on them the way I expose Malam Nasir El-Rufai, and they now, everybody wants him dead alive. But Nasir El-Rufai is still one of the best resources for this country.
Well, on that note,
I will plead with President Tinubu to please call Nasir El-Rufai back to the cabinet.
On that note, Mr. Kunle, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and for joining us and for your insights.